I'm applying to other schools, but if you take me, I will withdraw those other applications and come there. That is different than early action. Early action just says, I like you a lot, and I'm ready to apply. I want to hear early by December or January. So it's not binding. I don't have to drop anything. I've got till May 1st to go. You can apply to many early action schools, but only one ED school. So if you look down your list and you see a couple of ED schools, first of all, you have to sign a contract online, as do your parents and your counselor, stating that you will attend that school if you are accepted. So make sure you only have one ED in your list and not confuse it with early action. So that's why some of your things might not go. So I'll take any questions that you might have about adding colleges or requesting transcripts. Did we?
Yeah, there was a question that came up in the chat. If you add a school, are you able to remove it from your colleges I'm applying to list? And if so, how do you do that?
You can, as long as we haven't submitted your stuff. All right? We can, when you edit it, you should be able to cancel it. If you're having trouble, just email us. We can show that you never applied. But even if you didn't apply, you decided not to later, if our stuff sat there, most colleges, if they're Common App, they do absolutely nothing until they receive your application. So even though you might think, oh, I'm in a hurry to get all my stuff there, get my transcripts and everything, and we did it next week, and the student didn't apply till December 1st, that's when they look at that other stuff on December 1st, not when we sent it. It just sits there. Other schools may just start a file for you. They might start nagging you saying, we have your transcripts, are you ever going to apply? That kind of thing. But we can remove it. Any other questions? I'm not seeing the chat, so.
There haven't been any other questions in the chat so far. Just a reminder to the students on here, if you do have questions, feel free to write them in the chat and we can answer them for you.
Okay, so if you think of one, that's fine. It looks like we've covered that. How about requesting a teacher letter of recommendation? We'll move to that. So first of all, how do you request a teacher letter of recommendation? Well, the very first thing you do is you want to make sure that you have school in this list already. You can't tell a teacher to write a letter for Bradley if Bradley's not in your list, on your Common App list, and here if it's on Common App, because you're asking a teacher to send a letter to nowhere, right? So the first thing you want to make sure is that the college that you're requesting a letter for is in this list. And secondly, you would go to colleges, and then apply to colleges, and then, oh, I'm sorry, we're going to skip a step here. This is what you guys do, right? So you're going to go to About Me, and then you're going to go to My Surveys. And we have surveys not started, right? So here's a whole bunch of surveys. Now we have allowed you to ask up to 3 teachers to write a letter. Please make sure these are required letters first. They'll write some for allow, some are allowed, they're not required, but they're allowed. Usually those are for special circumstances, or they might be from a coach or a sponsor, activity sponsor, or someone else, but make sure that they are required or allowed. We get so many requests for teachers to write letters, and then they go to upload them, and the school won't accept them, and they're frustrated, and they're not very happy with you either. So the first thing you have to do is go to teacher number 1. Then you would open this up. This is your opportunity to tell the teacher about yourself, what you did in the class, what year you were in the class, obviously the name of the teacher at the top, the grades that you earned, your list of outstanding activities, in your opinion, my best achievement. In other words, you get to remind them of what a great student you were, or a presentation that you gave, or a group you participated in, or an essay you wrote, or something like that. So you fill that out. And then this replaces a sheet we used to actually hand to the teachers. And then you're going to click, it's required for these colleges, Northwestern, Purdue, whatever. It's optional for these colleges. If they're writing a required letter, it's no big deal usually to add an optional college. But if you only have optional, there's no reason why that teacher can put that on the back burner. I hate to say it, if she has letters that have to be there by a certain date. So save it, finish it. Also, this is teacher number 1, okay? So now you're gonna go to apply to college, letters of recommendation. And let's say that teacher number 1, I'm gonna add this teacher. Let's say teacher number 1 was Mr. Aletto. Now this is very important. He's teacher number 1, and I will never ever pick, oh, I want you to write for all current and future colleges I add to my college list. I wish I could disable that, because I will actually cancel those requests, and so will a teacher. You must choose a specific college. So let's say, you can see Bradley has 0 required, Georgia Tech, I only need 1, right? If I asked 2 teachers to write, maybe I wanted somebody to write for Bradley, even though it's optional, and a different teacher to write here. Whoever got to Northwestern first would be the teacher that would get that letter if I clicked this one. So we always want you to choose a specific school and say, Mr. Aletto, I want you to write for Northwestern. Then you'd write him a note. First thing you tell him is, thank you for writing this letter to Northwestern. And secondly, you are teacher number 1. If there's any other information you'd like him to know, like I know this is allowed, they let me pick between a counselor and a teacher, and I chose a teacher. Okay, so let him know that there's a reason that you might be requesting an allowed letter, or you had a special circumstance. You submit the request, and then Mr. Aletto will get that request in his Naviance account. And when the date will always follow whichever date you put down that it was due. It will match what your application said, okay? So you can also track the progress once you have put that in there. You can also cancel a request once it has been sent, before it has been sent. So if they haven't responded to it and you decided you didn't need it, you can always cancel that. So the teacher gets the request. If you add any other colleges later on in this process, like you only asked for 1 now, but you added a school later on, you just go back in here, you go to the same teacher, you add the request, you go back to Mr. Aletto, you pick a different school, school that you added, and have him send it, all right? You should know that if it's a Common App, again, it's going to go to Common App, and it will also have a teacher evaluation accompanying it. When you look at Common App and it talks about teacher recs, they don't call them teacher recs, they call them teacher evaluations. And that's because there's a form that the teacher fills out that accompanies your letter of recommendation, and it rates you compared to other students that they've had in the class or in their teaching career, okay? So if you're wondering what a teacher evaluation form is, that's it.
We have some questions come in that are related to letters, so I just want to ask those while we're here.
Okay.
First question, does LT send transcripts and recommendation letters electronically to schools when a student does not use a Common App?
Yes. As long as the school, so when the student goes to look at a school in Naviance, it will have different symbols. One will have a CA in the symbol. That means it's Common App only. If it is a blank little computer, actually we can look at my colleges, right? Let me look at my screen here. Any minute now. Okay. Oh, sorry. Done the wrong one here. Okay, so my colleges, see how this is a CA only? That means they only take the Common App. This one says it's got a CA.
You muted yourself.
You know, it seemed for when I'm switching over. So let me start that again.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it has a CA in the box in the little computer screen, it means it takes only the Common Application. Or in this case, I'm applying Common App. So if it changed when I edited it, then it would take both. In this case, it takes both the Common App and their own application. And if there's a plain little computer screen with nothing in it, that means it will take it electronically. If there's a postage stamp, it means it has to be mailed. So it will not go electronically. So basically, once you put that request in, we can turn that request around pretty quickly. We have always asked for at least 10 school days or roughly 2 to 3 weeks for any request, because especially closer to deadlines, because we will process maybe 4,000 applications by Thanksgiving. And we're not the only school submitting around November 1st. So don't wait until Halloween at midnight just to make a request, or we don't wait that long to submit either, because we don't want to get, often they'll time out, the system times out, there's just too many people on it. So just save yourself some stress and apply early.
All right, thank you. I have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
Another question, since, excuse me, since LT treats the Coalition app as direct to the institution, are students able to view if colleges receive their documents by checking the Coalition app or by checking Naviance? How does that work?
Well, you will always be able to check what we have sent in Naviance. If the school gives you if you have a Coalition account, when they receive that information, it should appear there. In the same way that if you have a Common App account, it'll show you when they got the teacher rec, when they got the transcripts. So there may be 2 places. Once they admit you, you may do away with all of those and just go to, you might get a My Sparty account at a non-Common App school or something, and then you'll start looking there, or they'll give you a My Illini number if they've accepted you, and you can look for information there. You should always check a few days before the things are due to make sure things are there. And some schools, by the way, will allow teacher recs to go later than the date. So though our teachers try very hard to make the dates, there are some schools like University of North Carolina that make it very clear they've got a week or 2 till afterwards. So don't panic. And also, once materials have been sent to the school, as I said, any Common App stuff goes to Common App. Then the school has to download it. Some download every day, some download every other day, some download once a week. So don't panic that it's not showing up right away. It is not immediate just because we sent it. But if you check on Naviance, you'll know if it's sent. So that's where you want to have the question. Don't go, oh, it doesn't say that they received it yet at Northwestern. It might take time.
Okay.
All right.
We've had a few more questions to come in about letters of rec, and if let's say a school says that 0 are required but 3 are optional, what is the recommendation on whether they should submit letters or not? Like, what is the criteria they should maybe follow?
So they're basically telling you, we don't need it. We will evaluate it on what you have. So if you're submitting letters, it might be for other reasons. Maybe you had something on your transcript that didn't match the rest. So you were really struggling in a particular class, and so you went and asked that teacher, could she clarify that in her letter about, this was a struggle, but I got extra help and I really came through and blah, blah, blah. So that'd be a good optional letter to put in there. Another one might be somebody who has an outside music instructor or has a private coach for athletics, or they do professional theater or music somewhere. And so that outside person might add a letter and send it. But generally, 1 would be plenty, or there's a special circumstance, or perhaps there's a learning disability or some challenge you've had, and that teacher can speak to that more directly. Or as I mentioned earlier, they might ask for a counselor rec or a teacher rec, and you've decided to go to the teacher and explain it that way. What it should not be used for is padding your resume. Unless you think that your transcript doesn't speak for itself and your application and essay does not speak loudly for itself, they're going to wonder why you need all this supporting documents. They kind of have a saying, the thicker the file, the thicker the kid. In other words, you're trying to show us that you have a whole lot of other stuff going on. Do you not want us to look at the basic application, essay, and transcript? All right. Okay, I do get, before I move off of the letters of rec, there's one other I want you to show. I get a lot of questions about, I have someone who's not here. Let me move you guys here. not at that school. And let me see if I can find this. Here we go. All right. So I want to cover this anyway. This is a Common App. I hope you've all started a Common App, done the FERP agreement and matched it. But this is your friend in knowing what you need, right? So you go, I'm on Northwestern's page on My College. It tells me they offer early decision and regular decision. No early action here. So we're not going to put down we're going early action. This is how we know right away when we want to apply and what the dates are. If you want to know what their testing policies are, you can look here. But under recommendations, this tells us what they want. School report will go automatically when you request a transcript from your counselor. That counselor will upload the school report with every Common App. This one says counselor recommendation required. That's that written letter of recommendation in a form similar to the teacher evaluation form that will accompany this transcript. And counselor recommendations are requested through Canvas on your own counselor's page, and we'll touch on that in a minute. Mid-year reports required. You don't need to do anything about this now. This is done that's a 7th semester transcript they're looking for. A lot of highly selected schools want to know how you did this semester. I would guess there would be a lot of schools looking for 7th semesters this year, since the end of junior year was kind of a wash.
Excuse me, Mrs. Musser, did you share a different screen? Did you mean to share a different screen?
Are you looking, it's not sharing?
I still see the Naviance screen. I don't know what everybody else.
Oh my gosh.
I just want to make sure that you are trying to share.
All right.
The correct.
I was. Hang on. Let me get a new share. Can you see it now?
No, I don't see
All right.
anything.
Let me get it back up. Sorry. This is where I need two different. All right. Now let me go here and share this one. All right, can you see it now?
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay. So sorry that. So up at the top here were your deadlines, right? Then you're going to scroll down to recommendations right here. School report, counselor rec, there's that mid-year. Final is your final transcript. No one is officially admitted until they have a final transcript at the end of the year. So they want to see that you're taking strong classes this year and you remain the same person that they admitted in the fall should be the same person at the end of the year. They didn't drop their calculus class second semester. They didn't withdraw from things. They didn't slack off in their grades. If that happens, the school does have the option to rescind that offer of admission. And I worked with somebody this summer had that happen. So it happens occasionally. So stay strong through the year. So this teacher evaluation is what I'm talking about right here. It says 1 required, 2 optional. That is a teacher letter of recommendation. They ask for an evaluation because they really want the form. The teacher can't just send a letter. They have to send this form. The letter is optional actually to them, but our teachers often will write a letter that accompanies it. So they will take 2 optional. This other evaluation here is what I was going to cover. When people have an outside coach, an outside person, and by the way, these teacher evaluations are not requested through Common App. Teacher evaluations always requested through Naviance, same with Counselor Rec. This other evaluation, you have an outside person who's not a teacher. It's a pastor, it's your employer, it's your outside coach. This is where the only place you can actually invite them through Common App to write a letter of recommendation and send it for you. They cannot have an LT email address. So if they're a coach that isn't really an LT coach, let's say here, but he's writing you a letter and he has an LT email address, you can't use him. Okay, so make sure it's another email address. And that's the only one that you can request outside of Naviance. All right, any other questions about teacher letters of recommendation, how to get them? All right, hopefully you're using this Common App list. You can see these are my colleges. This is what I'm talking about having them in your college list as well as having them in the Naviance list. Also, please make sure that you're following the writing requirements at the bottom. It'll tell you which school needs that 650-word essay. Some have additional questions or an additional essay that you might have to utilize. And also in the writing supplement is where there is any other information you'd like us to know about you. Okay, so let me get out of here. Coming up and go back to.
There is a question that came in about transcripts. When students match their school with Naviance, like the Common App in there, are they told whether they need transcripts or if it is a self-reporting school, or how can they find that information?
Okay, so usually it's in the application itself. Now, if you're going Common App, it will always need a transcript because Common App requires a transcript, period. That's why I said if you're going to Iowa and you're putting in your grades, you don't want it, you'll be done if you just send it. So Iowa, Iowa State, University of Illinois, Illinois State does not require transcripts, by the way, unless you're not going to report test scores. So you should keep that in mind. But the other place to go is the college's own website. You're looking at the application, what are the requirements, what are the deadlines? And if you're between a Common App and a regular, say, I know that the regular one will be processed faster, but I also don't need any additional information. So see which one is easier. Don't just assume I'm already doing 4 other Common Apps, maybe I could just throw this in, when you might hear a lot quicker from these other schools. So most of our state universities have their own applications. Western Illinois, for instance, takes the Common App and they take their own app. Why would you ever go Common App? It's like one page. What's your name, address, phone number, what are you majoring in, what courses are you taking, pay your fee, blah, 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 done. You could do that and hear back in no time at all. You don't have to wait for them to download a bunch of Common Apps or for your counselor to sort through a bunch of other schools that really do need additional materials for the Common App. That helpful? Okay, so counselor letters.
We have about, we are past our time, so
Okay.
we should remind everybody that we will be hosting another session next Friday. So if you want to come on, or if your question was not answered, please send it to your counselor directly or Mrs. Musser, and we will address that. We should maybe take some time now to just answer questions. I would like to remind everybody that our Canvas page has all the resources for you to look at. It also has some great virtual college visits, and definitely we encourage you to look at Naviance to continue participating and registering for all our representatives that are visiting LT virtually and all after school. So it's critical that you take advantage of those. The live student panels that are offered also virtually, you can find that link on our Canvas page. Okay, so make sure you're taking advantage of all these things while you're still going through that process.
I'll add one more thing to the counselor recommendations. You're going to make your counselor recommendation on Canvas directly to your counselor. You only need to do that once. So if you have schools later on that also need a letter, you don't need to request that a second time, because the counselor will see when you are when he's sending your transcript that it needs a written letter, and he will already have it done and will send it. Okay, also, just a reminder, do your own work. I got a lot of moms calling me, not students. Students, do your own work. Colleges want to hear from you, and your parents are making a lot of mistakes. So, and you're going to pay for it. So we call you and say, what did you do here? We're getting, I don't know, my mom did it. So do your own work. Read the directions carefully. We do have a lot of good Zoom meetings on Canvas and on the main LT page. So watch those, follow the deadlines, request these materials early. And also, starting in October, we're going to start talking to you about the FAFSA. You should be going on FAFSA.gov, you and your parents, and getting an FSA ID number that you'll be using when you file your FAFSA. This is to get any kind of federal money, so student loans, federal loans, parent loans, and money that would go, that you would be entitled to because you have financial need. Also, some of your schools that are selective, like Northwestern and Notre Dame, will be requesting students to file the CSS profile. That's found on the College Board, so we want you to look at that and look at the instructions for getting their own institutional aid. Any other questions I can answer?
Mrs. Mustard, there's a good question that was asked by a student about the teacher recommendations. Does Naviance let us know once a teacher has sent the letter so they can keep track?
Yes, they can go when we're on their request form, it will show if it is pending, submitted, or canceled. Actually, in progress, not pending. It'll say in progress, submitted, or canceled.
Thank you very much. Oh, we have another message.
I think that was me answering someone else's
Right.
question there.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can request the transcripts as soon as you add your school. You can request letters of recommendation as soon as you add your school. Just make sure all the important information is there, like the deadline, the due date, and whether or not it's required. As I said, if it's not required and it's not allowed, the teacher's going to be very frustrated when they take the time to write a letter and cannot send it. Our system will not allow it.
I would also like to remind everybody that make sure that you're adding schools that you are actually going to apply to. Please do not add schools that you're not planning on applying to. If you're just thinking about them, leave them in your I'm thinking about, especially when it comes to requirements. If teachers are required to do something or counselors are required to do something, but you're not going to follow through, I will tell you that that is extremely aggravating. So please do not do that.
Right, so don't move your entire college I'm thinking about list over. But I would put your school in colleges I'm thinking about first and move them over one by one. That way you know that you've got University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus, not the Duluth campus. We've already had a lot of students make mistakes. There are 2 Georgetowns, there are 2 Cornells. So make sure that you know which school you're applying to and which campus. Penn State has 22 campuses.
All right,
Anything?
it is 8:05, so I think we should conclude today's meeting so that everyone can get ready for their classes. Thank you for attending, everybody. It's been great to see you. Have a wonderful weekend. We will try to upload this presentation, or at least the great Q&A section, onto our Canvas page, probably over the weekend. Any other closing remarks, team?
No, have a good weekend. Happy Friday.
Thanks for joining us this morning. Have a great weekend.
Bye, everyone.